I just finished a wonderful biography I think you'll like. It's called Rebel Yell, about a biography of Stonewall Jackson by S.C. Gwynne, Gwynne. It makes so many interesting points about this character, but more about military history and the time in which he lived and fought. The first that struck me as really important is that he was one of the first generals to understand the difference in firepower and how technological advances changed the nature of the battlefield. Most Southerners were fighting with smooth-bore muskets dating from the 1840s and 50s, and they were accurate within a range of 100 to 200 yards, but were practically useless beyond then. Grant once said that if a guy fires at you with a smooth-bore musket from 500 yards away, he can shoot at you all day long, and you'll never know it. Whereas the North was largely equipped, and increasingly totally equipped, with Winchester rifles that had rounded, rifled gun turrets, so that the bullet would spin around and become incredibly more accurate in its hitting. And because of the nature of the conically shaped bullet, it would do more damage when it entered the body. Wouldn't just go right through, it would spread and screw up all the bodily organs that were nearby. And with that increased lethality, it necessitated a change in tactics. One of the big changes was not to charge an enemy that was dug in and entrenched, that should absolutely get destroyed. And particularly if the enemy was the North and you were the South, before you could get even close to being able to use your guns, their rifles would tear you apart. Now, we know that Robert E. Lee, after Stonewall's death, completely ignored that insight, and there was Pickett's Charge, where 17,000 Confederate soldiers were horribly defeated because of this concept. I think the second important innovation that Jackson brought in was he anticipated the war of movement of the Second World War. If you look at Grant against Lee in the closing years of the Civil War, it's become axiomatic that they set up the precedent for World War I, trench warfare, particularly in the siege of Petersburg right outside of Richmond at the very end of the war. But not as widely commented upon is that Jackson, with what he called his foot cavalry, he would make his men march 20 and 30 miles a day, many of them barefoot, going over treacherous mountain passes, constantly flanking his enemy and getting in the rear of the enemy. That deception and speed of movement became the keys to battlefield victory, which was a concept that I think was also a relatively novel one. The other thing that I've learned from the book is by studying the Union generals, it's very clear that McClellan was not aggressive in pursuing the war because he was determined not to destroy the South. He wanted to reunite the Union on the basis that existed before the Civil War started. Keep slavery, keep the plantation system, don't destroy the South, and don't engender such ill feeling that it was impossible to knit the Union back together again. That was the consensus position of the Democrats who supported the North. The Republicans didn't agree with that. They said a war goal is to rip the South apart, destroy the plantation system, undermine its capacity to function, and strip it of slavery, and really remake the image, the South in the image of the North. And when that battlefield and war objective changed, the tactics changed, and it no longer became important to look to your supply lines because you'd loot the country, and that's how you'd feed your army. And destruction of plantations was not something to be avoided, but something to be encouraged. It's a great read, wonderful history, beautifully written, a wonderful introspective view of his character and of his religious faith that motivated everything he did. When people acclaimed him and applauded him, he hated it because he said it's appropriating to him credit that's due to God. Absolutely fascinating book. Rebel Yell, Biography of Stonewall Jackson by S.C. Gwynne. Thanks for watching. Hey, let's chat. You're watching these videos and I'm sure you have reactions to them. Why don't you go to facebook.com/dickmorris.com and let me know what you're thinking. I'll read a lot of the comments you send me, and I'll answer a whole bunch of them. I think the internet should be more of a two-way dialogue, and this would be great. So you go to www.facebook.com/dickmorris.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you there.